Hello everyone. In this presentation, we will talk about digital signature. Let us see what are the things we will study in the further slides. We will talk about the definition of digital signature. Second, we will talk about the purpose of digital signature. We will talk about the comparison. We will basically compare the conventional signature and the digital signature. By conventional, I mean the pen and paper signature. Next, we'll talk about the digital signature process, how the digital signature process is interpreted nowadays. We'll talk about the security services provided by the digital signature. Then we'll discuss about the attacks on digital signature. What do we understand by digital signature? Okay, so the digital signature is a mathematical scheme for demonstrating the authenticity of a digital message or document. What does these lines mean? Basically, a signature is a proof to the recipient that the document comes from the correct entity. This is what we all want when we just talk about authenticity. So a valid signature gives a recipient a reason to believe that the message was created by a known sender. That is the sender from whom the receiver wants to receive the message. That is basically the authenticity, right? Now the sender cannot deny having sent the message, and this process is called non-repudiation. When we talk about integrity, it means the message during the transmission should not be altered by the third person, right? Okay, let us see why we need the digital signature, that is the process of digital signature. Why it is needed is to provide authenticity, integrity and non-repudiation, which I just discussed in the previous slide. And I just give an example where it is proved as for the good sake, right? We can say that it's an example like to use the internet as the safe and secure medium for e-governance and e-commerce. Nowadays we do so many like online transactions, or we can say e-governance and e-commerce, they require safe and secure medium, right? So there we use the digital signature too. So we can see by the diagram that what is the purpose of digital signature? Verify the identity of the sender, verify the data integrity of the information. Now let us compare between conventional and digital signature. We'll compare this on basis of various factors, right? We'll see inclusion. What do we mean by inclusion? In conventional signature and the digital signature. When we talk about the conventional signature is included in the document. It's not a separate document. By this I mean that when we send a message, the conventional signature is done on the same document, right? We don't need to attach or make a separate file, which is to be done in digital signature. There the digital signature is sent as a separate document. The sender sends two documents, the message and the signature, to the receiver. Let's see verification method in both the signatures. What is the difference between verification method? Recipient receives the document, compares the signature with the copy of signature on the file. I mean, one should have the copy of the signature of the sender, right? That is how he can compare when he receives a file or a document. He can compare the signature of the sender by the signature which he is already having, right? Now in digital, the verification method, recipient receive both the document, the message and the signature, both as a separate document I mentioned earlier. So the recipient receive both the document. Apply verification technique we will study further to verify the authenticity of message and signature. Let us just see other points, right? We'll see the relationship. One to many relation between a signature and document. What does it mean? It means that the same signature, a person can use the same signature to sign many documents, right? But in digital signature, one-to-one relationship between a signature and a message is maintained. That is, each message has its own signature. If we send a message, it has a signature. If the sender wants to send another message, the signature has to be different, right? It cannot be the same as the previous one. Let's talk about the duplicity. What do you mean by duplicate or duplicity? Copy of the signed document can be distinguished from the original one. Obviously, a person has a particular signature. It is authenticated, by seeing that the signature is valid or not. The receiver has a copy of the signature. If the sender is not the valid one, we can easily see that, right? But in digital signature, copy of the signed document cannot be distinguished from the original one unless there is a factor of time on the document, that is timestamp. So basically it is quite difficult for us to distinguish the original and the duplicate when it comes to digital signature, right? Now let's just come to the main point, the working of digital signature process. How does it work? How we implement this in real scenario? Let's see. The sender uses a signing algorithm to sign the message. The message and the signature are sent to the receiver. Let us suppose the Alice is the sender, Bob is the receiver, right? The receiver receives the message and the signature. As we say, in digital signature, the message and the signature are sent as a separate document, right? So when the sender sends the message, the receiver receives it, apply the verifying algorithm to the combination. If the result is true, that is, if it finds the messages from the valid sender, it accepts it. Otherwise, it will reject. So a digital signature can be used with any kind of message, whatever it is encrypted or not. Simply so the receiver can be sure that the sender's identity and that of the message arrived intact. That is, it is not changed during transmission. Let us talk why we need the keys. Like the sender simply can send the message and the receiver can receive it. But then we see many malicious activities happening during the process of transmission. So to ensure that the sender sends the message to the correct receiver and receiver receives the correct message from the correct desired sender. So let's just see why we need the keys. The signer uses her private key applied to the signing algorithm to sign the document. What does it mean by the private key and the public key? In digital signature, we have two keys, the private and the public. How, like a sender and a receiver, the communication between both is done by these two keys. Use the signer, like the sender. The signer is the sender, right? He uses the private key, apply to the signing algorithm, and send the document to the receiver, which is the verifier. The receiver is the verifier. It will verify the document. It uses the public key of the signer applied to the verifying algorithm to verify the document. Now here a point to be noted is the private and the public key of the sender will be used. In both the cases, the private key and the public key of the sender will be used, not of the receiver. So, in this slide, we'll talk about the digital signature process as continued. Digital signature are based on public key cryptography, also known as asymmetric cryptography, using a public key algorithm, as I already explained the concept of public key and the private key, right? We create a digest of the message using hash function. Hash function is a function that is used to create a digest of the message. By digest, I mean, a small part of the message, because the message is too longer and we are using a asymmetric cryptography. So we need to have a, if we try to reduce the length, that will be much easier for us to, continue the process. So basically the sender signs the message digest, which is created by using a hash function, which is made at its own site. Digest go through the signing process using the sender's private key. Remember, the sender's private key sends the message and signature to the receiver. At receiver ends, what it does is, again a digest is created out of the received message. Using the same hash function, verification process is applied to the message digest and the signature for authenticity. If authentic, the message is accepted, else it is rejected, right? So basically in short, the process is the sender uses its private key just see, just verify, sign the document, not the verification, sorry, sign the document, send it to the receiver then again creates a digest using the same message, verifies it and accept it if it find it authentic, right? If it find it valid, it accept it, otherwise it will reject it. So in the diagram, the process is quite clear. Here we have a sender, create a message digest algorithm, it create a message digest, and then with the help of its own key, that is the sender's key, encryption algorithm is also implemented so as to protect the message from any malicious activities. Now this is sent to the receiver. The receiver ends, it just create a digest from the message, uses the sender's public key. Remember, the sender's public key, not the sender's private key. Basically, the sender's private key is a private thing that is known to the sender only. It cannot be disclosed to the other third party so that the process goes smoothly, right? So there it uses the sender public key, encrypt the document and read it. If it finds it correctly, it accept it, and if the error message has been modified, it will just show that notification and it will reject that. The point to be remembered, just the important point you have to remember while you just go through the things. The reason for encrypting the hash instead of entire message or document is that a hash function can convert an arbitrary input into a fixed length value, which is usually much shorter, right? We just discussed that why to create a digest. The message is normally too long and we use a asymmetric cryptography. So for that we create a digest which is a part of the message, and then what it does is basically save our time since hashing is much faster than signing, right? So in the digital signature, we use the private key, and who uses the private key? Just remember this point. Private key is of the sender, public key is of the receiver, right? Public key is used by the receiver, private key is used by the sender, and both the keys are of the sender only. What are the benefits of digital signature? Authentication and integrity, as we already discussed these points, right? Let's just see the security services provided by digital signature. What does it mean by security services? We say that in every process we should ensure some security purpose. Unless we don't have any, it's of no use, right? So here we see 3 points. The message integration integrity, right? We already discussed these things from the beginning. So let's just have a glimpse of this. The validity of a transmitted message. What does it mean by integrity? The validity, right? When it is transmission is being held, we just have to ensure that the message is not changed. The sender and the receiver of a message may have a need for confidence that the message has not been altered during transmission. Although encryption hides the content of a message, it may be possible to change an encrypted message without understanding it. That malicious person, they will just try to get the message in between. So to ensure that it does not happen, we have message integrity, which the digital signature fulfill. So further it's written that the message is digitally signed. Any changes in the message after signature invalidates it, and no effective way to modify a message and its signature to produce a new message with a valid signature, because this is still considered to be computationally infeasible by most cryptographic hash functions. So basically, in short, a digital signature provides message integrity. So we can see, we have a sender, we can say Alice, we have a receiver Bob. In between the person standing, he's a malicious person. So we see the whole process in the diagram. I hope it is clear to you all. Let us move to the next slide. We see the second point when we are talking about the security thing, the message authentication. We already discussed it. What is mean by authentication is the correct sender. The receiver should get the message from the correct sender. Message may be often include information about the entity sending a message. That information may be accurate. Digital signature can be used to authenticate the source of messages. When ownership of a digital signature secret key is bound to a specific user, a valid signature shows that the message was sent by the user. So the importance of high confidence in sender authenticity is especially obvious in a financial context. Here is an example that why the authenticity is so important. For example, suppose a bank branch officer sent an instruction to the central office requesting a change in the balance of an account, maybe some withdrawal or maybe some further transfer. So the central official is not convinced that such messages is truly sent from an authorized source. So acting on such a request without having without being sure could be a big mistake, right? So for that we need message authentication, which is quite fulfilled when we use digital signatures. Let's talk about the last point, non-repudiation. The assurance that someone cannot deny something. What do you mean by repudiation is the assurance that someone cannot deny something. That means that if a sender agrees to something, that is, it send a document with his sign, and later he denies that he did not send the document. For that we have a digital signature. Like, how does this process work? Between the sender and the receiver we have a third person, that is the trusted sender. The sender, let's understand this process with this diagram. Okay, so the Alice is the sender. We see that Alice sends the message, sends the its identifier, its own identification, sends it the message, the signature, its own identifier, sends the Bob's identification, and these things are kept with the trusted center. The trusted center, what it does is verify the message and the signature of Alice. It then sends the message and its own signature to Bob. Later on, when it may happen that Alice, on some conflict may arise between Alice and Bob. So Alice may deny the sending of some information. What the trusted center will do is it will show a copy of Alice's message and signature, which he kept while when the original process went on. He can just show that, and Bob can also show the message or the document which the Alice sent to him. If the both matches, if they both matches, the Alice cannot deny it. That means Bob will win the argument. So the non-repudiation is the assurance that someone cannot deny, and it is quite fulfilled by digital signatures slides. So thank you.